I might get crucified for saying this, but Brad Stevens was cooking with the Jaylen Brown trade. And not only that, I think the Celtics are going to be a better team this year and in the future because of it. It's been about 2 weeks since the Jaylen Brown trade, 2 weeks of listening to all of the takes from people smarter than me and people who have been around the game a lot longer than me, listening to Brad Stevens' response and listening to Jaylen Brown's streams.
I'm still processing a lot. Chat, like, you know what I mean? Like,
and while my initial reaction was pretty much the same as everyone else's, like, damn, they really did just trade Jaylen Brown for Podcast P and a Wendy's 4 for 4.
Ball game.
Tie! Missed everything.
After marinating on it, I think the Celtics, if Jayson Tatum stays healthy, are going to be better next year. And when I say this, I'm not coming from the perspective of one of those analytic guys because, man, I know the on-off numbers do matter to some extent, but they are dragging it at this point. Bobby Marks said that an anonymous analytics guy told him that they view Jaylen Brown as the 7th best player on a championship team. And then an anonymous GM said that they don't view Jaylen Brown as a top 50 player in the NBA. How do you not view Jaylen Brown as a top 50 player in the NBA? Putting top 50 into perspective, The Ringer put Brandon Miller as the 50th best player in the NBA. And apparently Jaylen Brown isn't even top 50, so he'd more so be in the range of Keontae George, who they have at 53. And I love Brandon Miller, and I love Keontae George, but neither of them are remotely as good as Jaylen Brown. And if you think that they are, then I might have to put you on some performance enhancement P drug test because I don't know what you're on.
All right. I guess now we see why he hit 9 threes.
But I also don't think that Jaylen Brown should be in the MVP conversation.
Jaylen Brown reminds me this season of NBA Youngboy.
That's besides the point. He is a great all-NBA player who is, in a vacuum, significantly better than old-ass Paul George.
I didn't see myself being washed that fast.
But that is not what we need to look at right now. The first big factor we need to look at is the money. I said that Jaylen Brown is an all-NBA player. He made all-NBA second team this year. And if we look at those teams, Jaylen Brown is making more money than anyone on all-NBA second team. And he's making more money than anyone on all-NBA first team, except for Nikola Jokic. Him and Jayson Tatum were taking up 70% of the cap space. And because NBA caps are increasing less than expected and at less of a rate at which Supermax extensions are increasing, they in the future would have been taking up more than 70% of the cap space. And everyone around the league, Brad Stevens included, realized that you can't win a championship with two players taking up this much of the cap space because people forget that this is not the 2024 Celtics. You don't have Drew Holiday. You don't have Kristaps Porzingis. You don't have Uncle Al Horford anymore. They had to dump these guys because they had to avoid the second apron. It's just too hard to build around two Supermax contracts because they take up so much of the cap space that you don't have the money or the flexibility to sign those key championship pieces, which is why some of the narrative has shifted to the real big first mistake was signing Jaylen Brown to that Supermax contract extension. But sometimes you just have to give the guy that contract. If the personality is any percentage of a concern that people have been making it out to be, then the Celtics could have had the foresight to be like, yeah, this contract might age poorly in the future, but our championship window is right now. We don't want one of our two best players to become disgruntled. We just got Kristaps Porzingis, whose ass is always injured, and Al Horford is about to officially be a senior citizen. We have all of the pieces right now to win a championship, and we can worry about that contract later. And what they did is win a championship that season before the contract extension kicked in. The other thing is that Paul George is a great fit here on the Celtics, and they're probably, like I said earlier, going to be better than they were last year, which sounds crazy to say at first because we've all seen those washed ass Paul George edits.
You light my fire, you light my fire.
Yeah, I think that song is copyrighted. And damn it, that Celtics jersey is going to look even more cursed. But I think his fit with his team is super underrated because Paul George was great in the playoffs last year. He's become great at playing off ball, and he is an efficient shooter. And we know Joe Mazzulla loves it when those threes are getting chucked up. And with him playing off ball more, you'll be able to empower Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and get the ball in their hands more because Jaylen Brown had insanely high usage. That internal growth is exactly what this team is going to need, because whether you have Jaylen Brown or Paul George, you really don't have the money to bring in the extra guys that you need. You need to hope for improvement upon the margins. And if next year they have a better Peyton Pritchard, a better Derek White, you have a healthy Jayson Tatum instead of Jaylen Brown, you have Paul George, and now you bring in NBA champion Mitchell Robinson, who's going to be killing the offensive glass, I think they have a much better team than they had last year. And what Brad Stevens kept repeating as his reasoning when talking about this trade in that press conference was optionality.
You have to do a great job, and you have to have the optionality to do a great job.
Which people were clowning on him for, saying that it's a cop-out, but I see what he was cooking. He is giving the team an opportunity to be better next year, while also opening things up for the future, because now you're taking in a few picks and you don't have that Jaylen Brown contract plus contract extension looming over your head. The Celtics were being proactive, which is exactly what has worked for them in the past. They were proactive when they traded Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce for picks that eventually ended up being Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. The one argument is that, yeah, this felt like you were selling pretty low on Jaylen Brown when he just had the best season of his career. Like Paul George and 2 firsts and 2 seconds, I guess, which the Boston Celtics are great drafters. They got Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman as super late first-round picks who were basically second-round picks. And apparently those guys were untouchable in the Giannis trade, which again, hot take, I understand. If you don't know, Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman, 2 like 15 minutes per game type of guys in the Celtics, were allegedly made untouchable when the Celtics were trying to trade for Giannis, which people were all up in arms about, but that's not the full context. They were untouchable as add-ons to Jaylen Brown and a massive amount of first-round picks already. And the Celtics didn't want to sacrifice all those picks, Jaylen Brown, and a lot of their depth to get Giannis, because it's the same issue. You can't win with 2 Supermax guys and then no depth and then no future. So they just didn't want to give up their entire depth and future for Giannis. That's not how you win a championship, and unfortunately, that's why they had to get off Jaylen Brown, because they realized they can't win with all of their money tied up in him and Tatum. And yeah, you feel like you didn't get enough for him, but you look around the league and his trade value is not what you expect, because he is a phenomenal player. Jaylen Brown is an outstanding player, but he's on a Supermax. And the league has realized that you can't win with 2 Supermaxes. That has literally never happened in the history of Supermaxes. And the second apron is now being treated like a hard cap. It's a dynasty killer. That's why we have not seen a repeat champion since the Warriors. Jaylen is just a guy who sadly was being paid too much money to fit with the Celtics. And now he's with the Sixers, where with some injury luck and LeBron apparently potentially signing there, they might be real contenders out east. So I'll keep you updated on anything that happens with that or anything else in the NBA. But I appreciate you all watching. I hope you all are having a great day. I'd appreciate it if you all subscribed, and I'll catch you all very, very soon.
You light my fire.
You light my fire.
You light my